Ready.
I don't care, I'm recording. Remember, you could sponsor Nerd and Tie. Just go to nerdandtie.com and click on the sponsor button. And if you don't want to, well, that's fine too, I guess. But also you can support a legal fund at gofundme.com/nerdandtie. And pretend the opening theme is playing, because I don't know if I'm going to bother editing that in. On this episode of Nerd and Tie, we are live at No Brand Con 2019. No Brand Con 18, the con that's finally legal to go into its own 18-plus room. On this episode, we are talking about 3 convention calamities that have happened in the past 2 weeks. And it's fun, it's exciting, and again, I never know how to do this without a theme song to peter me out, because usually I sing the theme song while one of these guys does it.
I don't remember what it is.
All right. Welcome to Nerd and Tie, the only podcast on the internet with a dress code, and we all forgot to wear ties ourselves today.
Screw
it wouldn't match my outfit. Thank you.
I am one of your hosts, Trey Dorn. Joining me, as always, are the splendiferous Genjamin Prockenstein.
I was doot-dooting because I don't remember the theme song.
It's mostly just doot-doots.
After how many episodes?
Yeah, and then also along for the ride is the wondiferous Nicholas Izumi.
Setai, Unmei, Roku, Shioku. I couldn't remember the theme song, so I just started thinking about Uchina Stairs. I'm sorry.
You know, that whole thing, like, it ends up sounding like a list of classes available from the freshman schedule.
It is the list of classes available from the freshman. It's spoilers. It's Akio's house. Oh no! I'm sorry, everyone. I just spoiled an anime from more than a decade ago. So
how dare you?
My bad.
How dare.
And so we are live at No Brand Con 2019 for probably our smallest live show crowd ever. But it's more than nothing. And
it's true.
Yeah,
that's just what happens when we're up against way more exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Like a dance.
Like
and
a
a trivia contest.
And the dance trivia contest.
Yes.
The most strange of them.
Oh, but it's been an interesting month,
to say the least.
And our big topic this episode is talking about 3 completely separate disasters. And we're going to start out with the easy one. And that is a week ago, Geek.kon, Madison's long-running convention, which was scheduled to have their 13th year this year, scheduled for September 13th, which is Friday the 13th. So the 13th year scheduled for Friday the 13th. They announced a week ago on Thursday night that the convention was canceled for 2019. They released an official statement, which included such things as throwing the former staff that they had ousted on purpose under the bus. That's right, I'm saying it. You can't afford a lawyer to sue me over that. If you could, you'd still have a convention this year.
Shots fired!
Sorry.
Someone called 911. We got an emergency for the burn ward.
Oh, that bridge just went up in flames, too.
Oh, dear.
What bridge?
Well, because they literally did. They said that despite our change in management, that they weren't going to be able to hold the con again. And, well, that caught me a little off guard, as that change in management was mostly one of the reasons that there was a partial boycott, informally, of their convention this last year.
There was also some blaming of some flooding, which, while the flooding was pretty intense, it wasn't quite the Gilgamesh levels that you might be led to believe.
I will say the flooding was pretty bad, and I think that did hurt attendance, but I think that it was a combination of the two. But secondly, the fact is that just frankly, there's so much bad news. So for those of you who don't know, Geek.kon had a little staff kerfuffle a little while back, in which a portion of their convention staff became, at a meeting that they weren't there for, ineligible to remain on staff. And this included, like, their entire guest relations team that they relied on. Then, after that, obviously, some people annoyed with this resigned in protest, including their entire security team, which is a pretty good security team, composed mostly of IRT veterans from ASEN's team. And so they left, and I'll tell you, I've got stories. And then after that, so there's an informal boycott from people around the community. Like, I know a lot of people who didn't go to Geek.kon last year because of this. And then flooding, which didn't help bring in new people. They invited, Geek.kon is a con with a core demographic rather more similar to an anime con than most general cons of its genre. They're mostly, you're looking at people in their 20s are the core consumer for that convention. So, of course, who do they invite as high-cost, expensive guests?
Who the millennials love.
Who the young millennials love and those Gen Zs can't get enough of. But the guy who does voice sound effects from Police Academy, and MC Chris, who hasn't really... Look, I love MC Chris, but let's face it, hasn't been a part of the geek zeitgeist since C-Lab 2021 went off the air. I love him, but I was standing outside his concert. I was part of a table immediately outside main programming. There were 10 people in there. Maybe 20.
Trey, he just wanted candy.
Bubble
gum and taffy.
I want to point out I'm a fan of MC Chris, but I'm also 38. Like, let's be clear. His core fans are my age. We are not the mass. I mean, they're a large portion of the people in this room, but not even most of the people in this building. Like, and let alone so, like, and look, I love Spaceballs. I love the Police Academy films. The name of the actor is slipping my mind right now, and I'm feeling awful about it.
I don't know. You just said you love Spaceballs, and that made my respect for you go down just a little bit. I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? I was a young Star Wars loving child when that movie came out.
And that movie hates Star Wars and everything about it. Mel Brooks apologized for
Winslow.
that movie.
Michael Winslow.
Michael Winslow was who I'm thinking of. I thought that was his name, but then someone's quote earlier today threw me off. And anyways, like, don't get me wrong, I have a childhood nostalgia for Michael Winslow, but I'm on the young end of people who know who he is for the most part. Because some of the stuff he was in came out before I was born.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
again, an expensive guest who is appropriate for many conventions, but for a con trying to market itself to people in their 20s, maybe not the most judicious use of funding for a convention.
Are you telling me there aren't Police Academy cosplayers at Geek.kon?
Like, it's like, and if the con was larger and could support that kind of guest, but let's face it, if you're trying to bring in new consumers, you've got an informal boycott happening, and like, even if you don't prepare, or even if you're not prepared for the inclement weather, like, that was like a lot of money spent on someone who's not going to bring in numbers. And they kept, like, I will tell you, I was at that convention and I had convention staff tell me to my face numbers weren't down, even though I could see with my eyes. And I know exactly what capacity those hallways have. And I know exactly how, like, even at its most efficient, Geek.kon has never been a con capable of handling a crowd more than 10 at its registration. And there was no line all weekend. Even at their best run, Geek.kon can't handle lines. I'm sorry. Even at its, Adam, I know you're in the crowd.
I was just waiting for it.
Even at that con's best, you guys couldn't handle more than 10 people at Reg without it taking 45 minutes. The only con that was worse than that was the first year of Ramen Con. Well, that I've been at, Dave. I've managed to never go to Anime Iowa. I literally started my own con because I didn't want to go to Anime Iowa. So, needless to say, as we sit here, and I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts or should I keep riffing? Like,
I will shed, like, I will shed a little tear from a not, because here's, like, I'm being realistic here. Like, a lot of people who I am good friends with got shafted, wronged, and mistreated by the hostile takeover that happened with Geek.kon. It was wrong. It was terrible. I'm still pretty pissy about that.
oh yeah.
I'm a little sad because it was still, even in its not greatness that was that last year, it was a good moneymaker for my wife and me. So I'm a little, I'm a little distressed about my September
it was always a good
budget
artist
more than
alley for
anything
me.
else.
It was always like when I tabled it. Like, and I want to say one thing.
That's my selfish thing. I'm sad because I need to rework my September budget because of this. So.
Look,
Yay.
the reason why this is, I think, so I want to step things back. I've been kind of ripping on this, but I want to be clear. I'm still actually friends with a couple of people on the staff who are still there, and I did not want this convention to fail. I wanted this convention to fix itself. I wanted this convention to walk back these steps. But I made it very clear, like when I was at Geek.kon this year and I was talking to staff, that what I wanted was we couldn't undo the crap that happened, which again it was bullshit. It was complete bullshit. But like what I wanted was the con to recover and eventually succeed, because you can undo crappy rule changes to a 501c4 or a 501c3. I don't know which it was because they're structured very similarly. Like you can fix that long term, but when a con dies, like, okay, they canceled this year. Now, when a convention cancels a year, and if they truly intend on coming back, they keep fighting to bring it back. WasabiCon is a convention that I don't think it's ever truly come back, but I know for a fact the people who ran it have been fighting and have been trying to bring that con back. And so I know that they're dedicated to doing it. You know, it's just because you're trying to bring a con back doesn't mean you'll succeed, but they fight it every year. And Geek.kon sent an ad into the convention we're at right now. Full disclosure, I am both the events manager and head of advertising and PR for No Brand Con. My comments in this podcast are not representative of No Brand Con's positions, policies, or anything like that. These are purely my own opinions when I speak here, but full disclosure, I'm in that position. And I'm the person who handles advertising exchanges in our program guide. Geek.kon, 2 weeks before they announced their cancellation, sent us an ad for their 2019 event. That's why I know the dates. That's the first time I ever saw the dates for this year. And again, is holding up the ad.
It's in the program guide. It's right flipping
And
there.
so,
like,
but we
nothing
we had a table exchange arranged with them. They were supposed to have a table in our ambassador alley. And now it's Friday night. They could very well show up tomorrow, but we've got badges set aside in a folder. We've got everything. We have not heard from them. They have not sent people. Like, we have not seen hide or hair of them at this convention. And if this recording is going out after the convention is over, but if they show up tomorrow, I will give them their table, because if they show up for a table, it means they're dedicated to bringing the con back. Whether they'll be successful, don't know. But at least it would mean they're trying. And I see as not showing up as giving up. That they say they're canceling for this year, but what it really means is that the convention is dead. And I think that's a problem, because even with all of the stuff that I've complained about and mocked and like been a little dickish about in the past however minutes, the fact is they were a nonprofit convention operating in this state. And in the state of Wisconsin, I know a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily here, but Wisconsin, besides the anomaly that is Wizard World, Wisconsin's is dominated by nonprofit shows. And these are all nonprofit shows that are run by fans who are unpaid, who it's 100% volunteers, and I think that's something special that you don't see. Like, I've lived in other regions, and that's not universal. That's not a universal thing. And so here was this general fandom convention, accessible to a new. It was a convention with a partial lit focus, not an anime con, that was attracting people in their 20s.
Yeah.
Like, that is
it was really something
an
special.
anomaly.
Yeah.
You don't see that. Like, No Brand Con is an anime con that, like, in Wisconsin, our anime cons tend to serve also the tabletop gaming and video gaming crowds, but they don't go to the sci-fi cons, and so, like, it's younger people. If I were to sign up and go to WisCon, I would be younger than most of the people there, and I'm 38. You know? And so the fact that this was a general fandom convention that was run as a non-profit and was attracting a younger crowd was part of the thing, ensuring a new generation of people in that fandom. And losing that on the schedule is a massive loss for the state of Wisconsin. It's a massive loss for this convention region.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really angry and sad that it is gone. It's, while any personal issues I have with the decisions made, any personal issues I have with decisions made are dwarfed in comparison to how angry I am that we're Wisconsin. A convention going 13 years in this state is an institution at this point. The fact is that No Brand Con is WisCon aside, because WisCon's a whole other beast, most conventions in this state are younger than the one that I'm sitting at, and it's in its 18th year. Concinity is a one-day con in Milwaukee that's 19 years. But for the most part, there was a massive con collapse in this state, and we've been rebuilding, and Geek.kon was part of that rebuilding, and losing it, I think, is a great travesty, honestly, to this region.
I agree.
Yeah, man,
I fully agree. Geek.kon was one of the first conventions I went to back before it was at the Marriott.
Yeah. Oh, I was there in the Humanities building. I vended at the second Geek.kon.
I can honestly say Geek.kon 1 was the only one I didn't attend. I was at 2 through final.
I didn't go to Geek.kon 3, the one year they were in a hotel that wasn't the Marriott.
That's the one I went to. That was the first one I was in.
And the only reason I missed it is because it was my sister's wedding.
Valid.
Yeah.
Valid. But
No, it's not.
But like Geek.kon was also the first convention where I started Artist Alley tabling.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like 7 years ago, I think. Jesus.
Yeah.
That was I remember that year, but for weird reasons. It was a strange year.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of stuff happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, when you go to a convention for 5 or more years in a row, it becomes a staple. You know, It just becomes, like, it becomes routine. It becomes like, oh, I'm back to see the family.
Yeah.
And so for that to get taken away is heartbreaking.
One of my best friends in the whole wide world was someone who I met through Geek.kon. This was someone who I want to put in perspective what an impact that con had on my life. Mm-hmm. Back during one of the early Geek.cons I went to, not the first one, but I think the second time around, I offered to do a Gundam panel that got stuck very early in the morning. And one of the only attendees of that panel is still such a good friend of mine that I was one of the groomsmen at his wedding. Like, that's how much that particular event means to me. And
Thumbnail.
So it hurts. Like,
It sucks. It sucks big time, especially because, like, it has to die in such, honestly, a pathetic way.
Yeah, this is not
a good way for a con to die at all. This is so disrespectful for, like, the previous years and everyone who has worked on it. So flattering.
I mostly picked that frame because Nick looks the best in it.
Acceptable.
And I look the most potato-y. Good.
Please, I look like a potato with sticks sticking out of it.
Well, you're a fuzzy potato.
I am a guy.
Those are not the potatoes you keep.
Not
If the potato is fuzzy, you don't keep that potato.
Nick is the only not potato here.
Like I said, I am a goddess beloved by Ishtar. You guys just suck.
Oh boy.
But yeah, TLDR, like, it just fucking sucks that Geek.kon had to die like this.
Yeah, and even if it was a suicide.
Yeah.
I
mean,
they took the mics away, so I can't drop
The
them.
most tragic way to go. In the words of Greg Universe, though, that's expensive. Don't
Right. And when I say like this episode, that's kind of the first convention that we're going to talk about.
Oh boy!
That was the best one. Because the next one is okay. So we're recording this on March 29th. Even though it's going out a couple days later. Right now, at this very moment, you know what's not happening? ReGeneration Who 5.
ReGeneration Who? I don't know.
In
what
Baltimore,
that is.
Maryland.
Okay.
It's a Doctor Who convention put on by Onizumi Events. And
Well, not anymore.
Not
apparently.
anymore. Who a week ago canceled. And let me tell you how abrupt this cancellation was. The day before they canceled, they announced another guest to their schedule. So if you're saying like, "Oh, I saw this coming," no one saw this coming. Portions of their own staff didn't see this coming.
Wow.
I will tell you.
Not a great look.
Not a good look.
So, okay, so they canceled the con. But they made the announcement on their own page, did not go to their social media. In fact, it took like 4 days for anything to appear on their official social media that the con was even canceled. So, like, it still looked like it was going on. Secondly, again, a week beforehand, they said one of their staffers went to their official Facebook group and announced that, "Don't worry, everyone's going to get refunds. We're just working on it." That post was deleted several hours later, and we had reported on it. I got an email from Onizumi Events instructing me that the person who had made that post was not authorized to speak on behalf of the company, and that they really asked me to take down that statement. I left it up, but I made mention that it's not an official statement, which is fair, because I think it's important that it happened. And they did inform me that he was a volunteer. But first off, if someone's just volunteer level, if you're running events and you're running a convention, your social media is your official. Like, they made all these things saying anything here on social media is not official, but they posted that also on social media. So should I not take that post as official? If your convention is making it on your official social media and you have people with authorization to post in there on behalf of the convention, as a person who runs social media for a convention, you got problems in your con staff culture.
So you're saying, Trey, that just because I'm hosting the cosplay contest at No Brand Con this year, I shouldn't expect you to let me run the No Brand Twitter for the next, 48 hours.
Right, exactly. It's the fact is we have staff in elected positions who aren't allowed to touch our social media because that's a controlled method of official announcements for the convention at every convention except for apparently ReGeneration Who. Now, lots of things have happened. Apparently, one of the people listed as an owner on the website, even after the cancellation until several days after, apparently, and co-founder of the company, who the company is named after, had actually exited the company in the fall, but it hadn't been announced yet. Now, this is to be assumed because she left mid-planning year and they didn't want to, scare attendees because she did leave with reasons unrelated to the convention management. She made a major life choice and moved across the country. So, I actually don't blame her. And if the convention was going to happen, that would have been perfectly acceptable thing to delay announcing, But some people have taken that as it was a fraud. But I think the fraud was canceling your convention a week beforehand. But they also claimed in their official announcement that the cancellation was due to, that they canceled the con because all these guests had canceled. One guest had canceled. All the other guests were surprised as hell, according to their own social media. So I don't know what the real reason was. I mean, it's because they didn't have money, and they couldn't afford to pay their hotel most likely. But I don't know what the actual reason was. It's because they didn't have money. Now,
often the reason.
Onizumi Events, if you went to their, I haven't looked at their website today, but if you went to their website a week ago, you would see that they're listed as running 3 conventions. Intervention.
Wait, what is Intervention Con? I want to know.
It was a convention. Intervention.
What was the theme? Was it to make people stop watching Supernatural? Because I can get behind that.
I like Supernatural. I enjoy the series. No, so it was Intervention, Potterverse, and ReGeneration Who. Intervention hasn't been held since like 2016, so still listing it as a current convention on their website would be like Nerd and Tie Expo still being listed as a current convention on our website. We don't do it.
But it still happens in my dreams.
Unlike some people, we learn from our mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also, unlike some people, even though we knew the numbers weren't going to make the money back, we held the con that we promised. It was great. Shots fired. Anyways, but also Potterverse, which was held last year, has not had a 2019 dates announced yet, and it's been over for months, which means this was the last convention this company was running, and they have canceled it a week beforehand. So yeah, that's a thing.
I think I just spitballed a way to save Potterverse, though, in my head.
Oh, no.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh, no.
I think it's a good idea.
No.
I want to lean into the verse part. Potterverses. We're going to get all the actors from Harry Potter and the related films that we can. Just have them fight each other.
No.
Whoever wins.
So what I'm saying is we get the cast of the films and the original London cast of The Cursed Child.
Yeah.
And we have them fight each other.
Yeah, Daniel Radcliffe versus...
That guy.
That would be great.
No, the only problem is the racists would be in favor of white Hermione.
Oh. Why did I have to remember everything?
I really wish we didn't need to talk about ReGeneration Who more, because I had a great segue to the next story that would have gotten so many people mad at me on Twitter.
So many people already are mad at you.
I'm about to say,
I know. We'll talk about that later.
That relates to the next story.
That relates to the next story, we promise. So, yeah, no, oh my God. So this is, and I wish I was shocked by this, but like last year we saw a whole rash of cons that were all canceled within a month before the convention. And like it is more shocking that it wasn't a new convention being, like when Universal Fan Con got canceled last year, it was a new convention, it was a new company. Them screwing up everything royally was, well, these guys have no clue what they're doing. They've never done this before. There was one guy who had worked cons before, but those were all canceled too. This is not to say anything other than there's one guy out there who I'm not going to bother saying his name, who's just really bad at organizing conventions. Not like I'm not saying.
Hey. Oh, you're not talking to me. Okay,
definitely
carry
not.
on.
But like this was a convention that was on its 5th year, and even with the removal of one member from the staff, you know what I mean? Like even with Oni exiting the company last fall, presumably, you know, her business partner from run the company was still there, and there was apparently this new guy with the same first name as her old business partner. Like, okay, so there's this guy, James Harknell, who was like listed as being the co-owner of the company with Oni. But then the email we got from the official contact was James Harstein. So I'm assuming they are different people.
No, Mandela effect.
Suspicious.
Yep.
I was looking at both at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I really hope that the music coming in from karaoke is audible on this.
Yeah, I'm fucking jamming.
Yeah. It's so. Oh yeah. Also, once proves that big, we're competing against karaoke.
Yeah.
But so, it's pronounced karaoke because we're not monsters, mongrels, and awful people.
Technically karaoke.
Which is closer to karaoke than karaoke, you monster. Anyways,
Choba.
I was calling Langland the monster. I want to be clear, not you. Okay.
Isn't karaoke like when a frog has a lot of spirit? Or am I... Japanese jokes. I love them.
Fucking you and Sergeant Frog.
Anyways, so yeah, it's.
Get up, baby, I'm a super.
I don't know.
What have I done?
Like, I think this one's really like normally though, like these stories where conventions like cancel like so close to their dates, like you can usually chalk it up to inexperience, but this was not a company that hasn't put together a lot of cons, and so, like, but I think it's clear that it's a money issue because they wanted to immediately rescind the refund thing, which is probably because the money they got has been spent. Because you can't refund people money you don't have without going deeply into the hole. So there's no money. If you're waiting for a refund from ReGeneration Who, please don't hold your breath because you will asphyxiate. They don't have any. That's speculation. It is just speculation. But again...
Allegedly.
These guys might sue. They are paying for a lawyer right now, which is really going to help you guys get that refund. I don't know. I feel like we've lost the crowd at that one.
Yeah, I don't know. What more is there to say? It's not happening. It's weird.
I don't know. Vega, is there anything else to say?
None of that would, I would be betraying some of my friends' confidence if I said what was on said Facebooks, that they are on their private Facebooks. However...
You mean you don't want to broadcast it to our
yes.
tens of listeners?
However, there are some groups that are doing a virtual vending room.
Yes, that is true, yeah.
And there are some people who are there who are just like hanging out.
Yeah.
Like what would have been the con space.
That's kind of cool.
There are some people that I was just looking at communities, seeing like what's going on. People are upset. Some people are still airing grievances over the entire Onizumi people, and some people are just like, well, can't make money in person, and let's try and do this and spread it around. So retweet that thing of them. I retweeted it.
Yeah, it's linked in on our news story on the website. There's a link to that Facebook group of the vendors and artists in the comments on our website because someone thankfully dropped that off.
That's legitimately cool, though. I like.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important to support those people who were expecting to go to a convention and make their rent, who suddenly don't have a venue for that. And that's the frustrating thing. When cons cancel a week out, vendors and artists have multiple conventions they can apply to on most weekends, especially on the East Coast, where there's a higher population density, and frankly, there are more conventions per capita than there are, say, where we are in the Midwest. Although, frankly, if someone didn't vend here at No Brand Con, they could have been at Anime Detour today. But these guys, so they're making choices to go to this convention over that convention, and when you cancel it a week out, that means that the sales there are already part of that person, and most vendors are small businesses, that person's, rent.
Yeah,
food.
Yeah. Not to mention travel expenses if they're coming from far away.
Yeah.
As someone who has flown to vent it at conventions, you want to make money when you fly to conventions to sell.
I think that's something some people miss out on is understanding that for a lot of artists and vendors, this isn't a vacation for us.
No.
This is an important part of keeping ourselves financially stable.
And as an artist, as a vendor, I'm going to have my stuff booked months in advance.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my days off taken months in advance because I know I'm going to be selling at these certain conventions so far ahead of time. I have everything set up.
Right.
And for you to pull that out from under me is...
Well, and the fact is that I've been running conventions I've been working conventions since the mid-90s. And I've been running conventions for 18 years. And I can tell you that, when there are going to be money problems. And I have always stated this, I wrote a guide on how to start a con that some people have used. And the first thing I tell people, the first thing I say is don't start a convention. The second thing I say is that if you do start a convention, or if you run a convention, you have to be prepared to lose every dime. You have to be prepared to just lose everything.
Yep.
And that's why, for example, Nerd and Tie Expo, that was expected to be, we were planning on losing money the first year. That was just a given because it was a new convention. It was but I knew roughly based on our pre-reg numbers, based on everything months ahead of time, that we were going to take a loss. And so you can, especially when a con's on its 5th year, you can look at the registration patterns, you can look at the photo sales, you can say that, this con is going to have a problem months ahead of time. So to not, if you know 3 months ahead of time, if you know a week ahead of time, 3 months ahead of time that the con's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Like, unless a hurricane happens, or an earthquake, that the con, whether or not the con's going to work out 3 months ahead of time. Cancel then. Like, I will say, like, Geek.kon, like, as much as I'm unhappy that they canceled, the fact is they knew now that they can't put on an event in September. So everyone who was banking on that con happening, and that's why these stories are in this order, everyone who knows now in March that the con in September is not going to happen, and so they can make plans otherwise. So I will say one massive credit to the current management is that they knew to not run a convention this year. It's whether it's forever or for not this year, they knew that they can't sustainably run an event this year. And they said no now, which will let every vendor and artist who would have otherwise applied, paid for tables. I know that some vendors prepaid for tables for next year, which is unfortunate. But like every single one of those people who was counting on that event happening can find other places to go. Yeah. So, it's like saying, well, they burnt the house down, but at least they didn't light the garage on fire. Well, at least they didn't light the garage on fire.
Agreed.
Unlike ReGeneration Who, which also lit the garage on fire and maybe a couple of the neighbors' houses. Speaking of fires...
Oh, boy.
We get to the big one.
We get to our third and the big story.
Big green Super Saiyan size story.
Some of you may remember our previous episode of Nerd and Tie, in which we discussed a specific voice actor and the feedback against him, and that is, of course, the Vic Mignogna of the late great career that he had at one point. And so in the entire movement, when that news came out, most cons canceled his appearances, except for a few. One of the cons that announced that he had been canceled appearing at their con was Kameha Con in Irving, Texas, which is scheduled to take place mid-April. Monica Rial was also on their guest list. Monica Rial, of course, being one of the few people who, in their accusations, has been willing to put her name on it and taken the brunt of abuse from Vic Mignogna's fans on Twitter. Monica Rial, again, was on the guest list. Many people registered under the belief that Vic Mignogna would not be there. About a week after the refund window closed for pre-registration and for vendors and artists, Kameha Con made an announcement that Vic Mignogna would be there. Needless to say, Monica Rial, who was also scheduled to appear and possibly would have been on the same panels, along with 4 other voice actors, immediately withdrew from the convention. The convention said that we are aware of the withdrawals, multiple new announcements will be made, and it's that they immediately had new guests announced to fill in their lineup. Almost like they maybe anticipated the reaction of reinviting Vic Mignogna. And again, all of these people, all of these vendors and attendees who had bought their tickets on the idea that Vic Mignogna would not be at the event are suddenly unable to get refunds for these tables and tickets because the window just closed. So that fucking happened.
I was really geared up to talk about this one, and I thought I'd be prepared, and honestly, I'm still kind of speechless because it's just so offensive.
This is such a bizarre story. So, anytime I post about Vic Mignogna on Twitter, no matter what I'm saying, even if it's just, why would a convention staff make this decision, would, of course, immediately ends up with people asking me for evidence against Vic Mignogna in my tweet box in an attempt to sea lion me to death, when I'm not even talking about whether or not the accusations are true. I will say I believe the accusers, but that has nothing to do with it. If you have the most public accuser against Vic Mignogna on your guest list, and you then invite Vic Mignogna, who, by the way, while he is, as far as we know, has not filed legal action against Real, has at least alluded to doing so on Twitter. So you've got a guy who's literally threatening to sue one of your other guests, or at least implying he's going to sue one of your other guests, and you bring him? That deafening silence is...
Deafening.
The whole thing is just...
It's batshit.
Yeah, I don't even know, I don't even know how to react to this. What an astoundingly stupid idea on their part.
One person replied to me on Twitter that they think that Vic... the guest contracts at Kameha Con, they're boilerplate. We haven't seen the specific contracts of any of these actors, but the boilerplate language they use has been leaked. And it includes effectively there's no clause. The convention is very limited in the ways they can cancel on a guest according to that contract. Now, as a person who's been working cons for 18 years, who's been working cons for longer than that, actually, I've seen enough guest contracts to know that first off, that's a stupid thing to leave the hole to put yourself into as a convention. You should always give yourself an out clause. But secondly, I've never I've seen even in situations where it was a guest had to cancel or a con had to cancel for unexpected reasons on a guest, that there's never been legal retaliation. So someone suggested that Vic Mignogna may have threatened to sue the con. I don't think that happened, and the reason is simple. I don't think Vic Mignogna's that dumb. I'm not a fan of Vic Mignogna, but I don't think he's stupid. And it's although he has handled everything poorly in this situation. So just pragmatically, let's remember that I do believe I believe the accusers. I believe that the people who say they've been victimized, I believe they have been victimized. That's just my belief, but I do believe that. But pragmatically speaking, we have seen time and time again that celebrity men in these positions, if they have been abusive, if they have done awful, awful things, unless they get prosecuted, they can ride it out. No one remembers that Sean Penn beat up Madonna. He did. No one remembers. Mel
the Transformers movies star someone who committed 2 hate crimes.
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Look it up. Seriously.
Mel Gibson screamed anti-Semitic slurs and threatened his ex, and yet he is still allowed in. Here's what happens. So, this is especially true if you're a white guy. If you're a white guy in Hollywood or even in Texas voice acting, really, all you got to do is you say you're sorry a couple of times, and then you wait 2 years, and then your career's back. That's it. That's literally all he had to do. That is all Vic Mignogna. I don't like it that this is the world we live in, but he could have pulled it off. And the fact is, but here's...
I feel sick because I know you're right.
But here's what happened. And here's where Vic Mignogna screwed his own career. Because all he had to do was say he was sorry, didn't he have to sincerely own up to it, but at least pretend to own up to it, and he could have recovered. And maybe he wouldn't have worked at Funimation. Maybe he would have worked at a different studio, but he would have recovered.
There's other studios.
Yeah, there are other studios, especially in Texas.
Yeah, so that's...
Or maybe he would have gone to LA or Vancouver, and he would have recovered. But what he did was that he let the Gamergaters effectively run his defense.
It's not. I don't even think you can say effectively. It's literally. It's the same people.
It's the same people.
It's literally the same freaking people. And just wait. Suddenly, Phil Mason and Carl Benjamin are suddenly gonna give huge shits about anime all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Give them 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's not like anime Nazi isn't a phrase that we've had to use before. The fact is, it's they will sea lion troll the heck out of anyone who supports the victims, to the point that they drown out any tags. And it's the same people. Like, I've literally had the same interactions with the same people on Twitter who have forgotten they've already talked to me. And that's why some of my responses are now, "Oh, you again." It's literally the same, and they search Twitter for anyone who might use, and they might use the Kick Vic tag, the tag that was used against Vic Mignogna, or they just search for his name, and they will just start replying. I made a post about how whenever I would talk about my support of Vic Mignogna's victims, that the asshole brigade would immediately show up and start sea-lying me. They immediately got the response saying, "Well, where's your evidence?" This is true. You could look at my Twitter mentions and find
I saw it
this.
happen.
You just gave it, dude.
And
You
I'm
just gave it.
Right. Well,
Like, you are the evidence, you ding dong.
so it's like, and then also there's this lawyer out of Minnesota. I think it's Rakita Law is what his tag is, who went on YouTube and made this whole thing about how Vic Mignogna should sue the accusers and should sue Funimation. And he has had to keep saying he has screenshot people, he has harassed people, he has trolled people, and like it is insane that this lawyer is doing this. And like, he kind of goaded enough where Vic Mignogna has said he's going to seek out legal action. Like, the fact is that Vic Mignogna has embraced these people. Mm-hmm. Vic Mignogna has said, come on board. If they had just been doing it and he wasn't interacting at all, it wouldn't, like, he still could have probably ridden it out. But he jumped on board his own bandwagon. And it's pretty much guaranteed he's going to remain radioactive, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm completely comfortable with Vic Mignogna committing career suicide. But, like, pragmatically thinking about it, I don't understand why.
The thing that still drives me up the goddamn wall on this one is I've seen people like even saying there can't be any evidence, Funimation's in the wrong, why won't they show us stuff? Because they're a company, they're not going to show you what happens in their like inter-company investigations. And no, because you bought a fucking Hellsing Blu-ray doesn't mean you get to find out how they prosecuted Vic Mignogna. I'm sorry.
Well, but also, anyone who knows how like legal systems work is a good joke. The problem is I need to keep making a point afterwards.
I'm sorry.
But also, importantly, and this is the thing, like, if there's like chance of actual litigation, you know what any of the victims aren't going to do? Provide the evidence, because it actually would help. Like, you don't want to do that until you have to.
Yeah.
And Funimation, especially as a company, is not going to release the results of an internal investigation to the public, you dumbasses. That's not how the world works.
And especially they're not going to want to, I don't know, air this out after doing a huge press campaign for, I don't know, some popular franchise they've had for 2 decades that rhymes with Megan Fall, where Vic Mignogna might have been like a key player at a bunch of their press events. Maybe they might not want a bunch of people looking at the fact that the title character of the last Megan Fall Me movie was was doing these things. I don't know why I refuse to say Dragon Ball tonight. Obviously, though, I mean, it's not Dragon Ball. It's a similar...
You know, I like people saying, you know, but he was like the star of one of the most successful anime films in American theater history. I'm like, that's not a defense.
Mean anything.
That means nothing.
That doesn't mean anything.
Well, okay, so this one guy on Twitter came at me when I actually talked about this very situation with Kameha Con. And I was just trying to say, like, tell him that if you were a person who was intentionally attempting to boycott anything that involved Vic Mignogna, that it was a shady move for the con to make this announcement after refunds are no longer available and not allow people to get refunds because of it. Like, that was shady. And I was like, you don't have to, whether you like, support him or not, you have to, like, can't you understand why this would be, like, why people who were against him would feel cheated? Like, and I just couldn't even, he would like, no, I'd be fine that the money was going to the people I do love and support, and that's what I should do. I'm like, that's not how, like...
That's not how capitalism works.
That's not how it works.
That's not how
any of this works.
And I'm just like, what?
Like, there's such a thing about taking a person and separating them from their work. Because I know a lot of people love the work that he's done.
Yeah. And,
like, the characters that he's voiced. And, yeah, I love some of those characters, too. But, like, you know for fucking sure, I'm going to separate that character from that person. Because that character was written really, really well.
Besides, you should be watching the subtitle down.
I was about to say, I'm going to be honest, as much as there are a lot of dubs Mignogna is in that I really loved.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I really like Romy Paku, so I'm fine. But,
right?
But yeah, so it sucks because, like, it also, for some people, it's hard to separate the art from the artist. I have trouble with that. Despite the fact that, for example, I spent some time with Travis Wellingham. I think he's a wonderful human being.
Yeah.
I don't foresee myself watching the Full Metal Alchemist dub anytime soon because of this.
Yeah.
I haven't touched my Rurouni Kenshin manga in over a year, you guys. Like, I don't forgive very easily with this kind of shit. I'm sorry.
No.
Except I'm not sorry. I mean, I understand there's a lot of good that came from, like, these characters, but it's hard for me to not see the toxic sludge of the monsters that created it.
I only watched the Full Metal Alchemist subtitled because, well, I didn't watch Brotherhood.
Because Romy Paku's wonderful.
I didn't watch Brotherhood. I watched the original Full Metal Alchemist fan subbed.
Uh-oh.
It didn't get released in America until after I finished the series. I'm not the one who downloaded it. I think it was Neil who downloaded it and played it at, maybe it was Galleon. It was one of those guys.
Trey throws the old no-brand Cohen Gustav under the bus.
I mean...
Oh.
Every time you watch a fan sub, you kill an angel.
So you've alienated several comics.
I haven't watched a fan sub. Look, it was a different world, man. It was a different world.
It was a different time. They had to walk to the video store to rent their VHSs of anime.
Okay, so really,
uphill,
no,
in the snow, both ways.
VHS days involved a lot of crazy shit.
So what you would
not
do?
the least of which
What you
being
would do
finding
if you
a
wanted
guy
to walk
who had a third-generation Macross Dynamite
I
17
will tell you. First off,
that you still treasure because it's all you've got. All right,
the first time,
the Dynamite explosion once again.
The first time I watched the Evangelion movie was a 5th-generation dub off of a VHS, and I couldn't understand why Shinji was staring at his hand.
What have I done?
It wasn't until years later that back in the day when we wanted to get a VHS of a fan sub, we would have to go find the GeoCities page, the guy running the fan sub group, and we would have to maybe donate $50 to sponsor the 3 episodes he was going to do so he could go buy the Laserdisc and import it to get a good clean rip.
And then there was the added bonus of there was no guarantee you were going to get the whole thing. I want to emphasize, I saw Macross Dynamite 7 several years before I saw Macross 7 because that's the fan sub tape I could get.
Yeah, and then you would have to send your blank VHS tape to the fan subber who might remember to dub a copy onto your tape and send it back. And this process would take, well, if you sponsored, it could take 2 years to get your goddamn episodes. And if it was an episode they'd already subbed, it would take months. So you kids and your fan subs.
And if you didn't sponsor...
Mind you, when we watched Full Metal Alchemist, we just downloaded it off a file sharing site. But...
And if you didn't sponsor, finding it sometimes meant talking to that creepy guy in the back of your comic book store. You know, the guy with the greasy hair and the Asuka t-shirt. And you just don't wanna, but on the other hand, it's the only way you're gonna get that Dynamite 7 tape. This is getting really personal.
Wow, man. Well, I mean, it was the 90s and early 2000s. They were all wearing trench coats.
Yeah.
So was I.
It was, pardon me, the Matrix trench coat. That was the...
Yeah.
Look,
we all had
black trench
jackets.
coats. We all had black trench coats, and
I think I still have my Junkos.
I finally got too fat for that trench coat probably about 7 years ago.
I graduated.
But I don't know. Sean can verify I had a black trench coat. I wore it on the bus to Best Buy.
I actually, this is only tangential, but I need to share this story because it's one of my favorite high school stories. Back in the day when, now granted, this is when digi-subbing was much more common, so it wasn't the VHS days. I had a friend who wanted to get me some anime. He downloaded, so he's like, I'm just going to lend you my external hard drive. Now, I was a dumb, edgy boy in high school who was wearing my Matrix trench coat, and he handed me his black box with his external hard drive in it, and I'm like, Tim, I can't walk through the school with a nondescript black box and a black trench coat.
Right? So, one time, we were making a student film in high school at the Milwaukee County Zoo about an AI in a shoebox that tried to take over the world. It was a stupid plot. And anyways...
And that's where Executron came from.
No, but we walked through the zoo with me in a black trench coat holding a box with wires all over it, sticking out in a piece of circuit board, and a red light shining out of it. And only I got talked to by security. Well, actually what we did was we went to the security office first and cleared it, and that guy thought we were crazy. But then 20 minutes after we left the security office is when we got security called on us. So it was a lot of laughter.
Oh, the good old days.
No, this was 1999.
Okay.
I was 9 years old.
I wasn't. So anyways, Vic Mignogna.
Yeah. Narcissistic.
Gotta go back to
I can't words.
Narcissistic?
Yes.
That's the word
He
you
is
wanted.
that.
Why does it always go back?
So I think we should move on to our mailbag, unless you've got more.
I've got one tiny little thing. Because I saw on Twitter that, so some person was tweeting at Will Shatner.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, what do you think of these fan films?
Being, of course, the Star Trek fan films made by Vic Mignogna.
Yeah.
And Shatner, gosh, I wish I had the actual tweet up.
Shatner's not a fan of Vic Mignogna.
No, William Shatner does not like Vic Mignogna.
Because basically he said that, like, he met the guy once and
Took a picture with him.
And then Vic went on to, like, say how Shatner taught him how to play Kirk.
He used these pictures to promote Star Trek Continues, which Shatner repeatedly asked him not to do. Very
just like,
publicly.
Excuse you.
Okay, I do have a closing thought for off of Gen's point here. So Shatner is a weird kind of anti-social justice dude. Vic Mignogna is Vic Mignogna. Chris Pine, please don't secretly be a terrible person. I need this.
Yeah,
I need this.
So the exact Shatner tweet is Star Trek Continues is blocked. They used images from Star Trek the original series to promote their series. I met the actor that played Kirk during a con. We took a photo and he ended up doing panels using that photo to say I taught him how to play Kirk. What would you expect my opinion to be?
Yeah.
Vic Mignogna, Vic Mignogna. Anyways.
Right, like,
There are two things William Shatner hates. Outlander fans and Vic Mignogna.
I'll take it.
All right, so let's move on to the mailbag. I have a letter here from Brenda Gibner. So we want to talk about something other than Vic Mignogna. Subject, Vic. So,
God dang it.
the following words are those of longtime listener Brenda Gibner.
Brenda.
So, been a while, just been busy with life in Ohio and the kids. To say this whole Vic thing is affecting one of my friends in the cosplay community, and it's the thing with Vic has been, she doesn't use punctuation. I love you, Brenda, but punctuation? All right, to say one of the things affecting my friends in the cosplay community, and I'm just disgusted at it. So, Hawaii Con has invited Vic as a guest, and those who are speaking against it are getting harassed, as well as their comments deleted, then banned. My cosplay friend Leah Rose is getting death threats, YouTube videos against her, and so much more from those who still believe in Vic. While I have not had an encounter with him at the cons in Arizona, I believe everything that is said against him. I really hope these trolls stop, but I doubt it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately. We love you, Brenda. Thank you for writing in again. We
Yeah.
always like your letters.
And thank you for your support
Yeah.
in this matter.
Yeah. And you did not expect to be writing into an episode about Vic Mignogna.
Hey, that kind of worked out thematically.
Yeah. So now the next letter that Gen's gonna read
Is an actual letter.
And it was written by someone who's literally sitting about 12 feet away from Gen right now, and that is Langland. Langland is here. I'm looking at him with my eyes that are in my face.
He could literally read this out loud himself, but he made me.
He's making you do it.
It says, "Hey guys, I am just writing to say hi. That's really all I wanted to say. I do want to ask Trey a question, but I will ask that later. That's all I have to say. Later, guys. Langland."
Your Langland impersonation is horrible.
I know. I gotta work on it.
We never get normal letters at live shows. You guys ever notice that? I'm actually
What's your
really sad
question, Paul?
At
Archivist
least we get letters at all.
I'm really sad Archivist
What's your
isn't
question, Paul Langland
Okay,
of
alright.
northern Wisconsin?
Okay, so I was reading some of the old comics of Unconventional since this is the last chapter.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of curious. I remember there was one based off the BorgCon where there's a kid running around with a knife based off of real events.
Yeah, that's a real thing that happened at No Burn Con one
I
year.
remember that.
Anyways, I always kind of wondered. We saw the kid get arrested. Whatever happened to him? Do you have any idea whatever happened to him? Did he get sentenced? Did he get thrown in jail?
I have no
Did he
idea.
get
I
off-
didn't care.
Well, you seem to know things about your characters that we don't know.
No bread knife kid, if you're out there.
No
Wait
brand.
a minute, no,
Yeah,
this
whatever
is-
happened to that guy, whatever happened to No Brand Knife Guy is what happened to BorgCon Knife Guy.
Okay, I was about to say, because I've had some serious questions about the BorgCon universe myself.
Yeah,
Because
go ahead and ask.
I'm a recurring character, like in background.
Yes. There are a
And I'm
couple
really
of those people in this
curious,
room.
does BorgCon universe Nick Izumi have like crippling gender dysphoria too? Like, how does he feel about Soldiers of the Sun? Is that his Robotech? Like what is it?
Well,
that he
but here's the
fixates
thing.
on? Like,
Here's
I
the thing.
wanna know.
Robotech also exists.
Okay,
within
yeah,
the
see, I've got problems. I don't know what he's doing. I know he has a Kikider t-shirt and I want it. So I'm gonna have to like Jet Li the One into your comic, kill my alternate self and steal his t-shirt.
So,
but, like,
So welcome, listeners, to the official fan cast of Unconventional. We're here to answer all your questions about Unconventional and posit some theories of our own. Enjoy.
I don't know. It's my favorite thing is right now watching people like reinterpret. So the latest comic like has such a Wisconsin way of talking that watching people like trying to interpret Ruth's reaction, which I don't want to reveal what it actually means, but I'm just saying all the people I've met who are like in Wisconsin totally understand what's happening in that scene.
Yeah.
Like totally understand Ruth's reaction.
Like,
that like what she's communicating to Sarah in that moment. Like it's super obvious.
it's a very
I have people like
Wisconsin
going like, well,
reaction.
you can't take what you have to only take it at face value. You can't really know Ruth. I'm like, Ruth is from like a poor, like grew up poor in small town Wisconsin. She's so Wisconsin. She's like half of her backstory is lifted from friends of mine, including her dad getting arrested for stealing tanks from the army. That's a real thing that happened. That a friend of mine's dad went to prison for. Like it's like that is a Wisconsinite communicating to a Minnesotan something very obvious that both understand.
It's a very Midwestern way of speaking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean.
Is it girl love?
Well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of girl love in that storyline. It's
Technically, yeah. Technically, yeah.
I mean,
I'm from the East Coast. You gotta translate.
Okay, so I'm sorry to the Nerd and Tie listeners who are not unconventional readers.
I told them this is now a fan cast.
When Ruth says, I wouldn't hate having Tracy around, it means she's happy to have her around. She's not necessarily romantically interested herself, but as the two are in a polyamorous relationship, she is perfectly okay at this point with Sarah pursuing a relationship with Tracy.
It's
That's
giving
what that
the
is.
go-ahead.
I thought I was like, because this
just-
storyline is not meant to be like the focal point. I'm trying to like, but I'm trying to make any time it does touch the surface be really clear what's happening. So I wrote that comic with Sarah smiling in the last panel and not having smiled in the two before, and like all of the like that was, as a person who has lived almost my entire life in Wisconsin with a rare dalliance in Indiana and a birth in Illinois, but as who's mostly lived in Wisconsin. Like, that's fucking obvious, yo.
Yeah.
Can our next fan cast be about my unfinished Gundam self-insert fan comic I did in high school? Because I want to make it about that now.
And then after that, it could be Trey's Ranma 1/2.
Oh yeah, your Ranma 1/2 cat labor crossover fic that we still haven't read.
My spin-off of someone else's Ranma 1/2 fanfic, Ranma 2097, my side story, which did get posted on the official website for the fanfic, so it's canon. I don't have that anymore. You could probably find it on the Internet Wayback Machine, but I don't have it anymore. I mean, brings us. We do need to do some Vomit Hat Steve challenge cleanup. We're not going to actually read any books because I don't have any downloaded, and I wouldn't bring a physical book up in front of a room full of people, only like a portion of which are in the Hall of Awesome already. But I am obligated to, 1, read the names of the members of the Hall of Awesome, 2, add a new name to the Hall of Awesome.
What?
Yeah, that last book did not last. In fact, the book was there were 2 people guessed the book. One person guessed really wrong, and that's Corfan right there in the second row. But he's already in the Hall of Awesome, so that just would have been bonus points, not get him on the wall. Okay. The new member on the wall guessed that it was 1776 was the book. And it is none other than AnimeCons.com's Patrick Delahanty, who has joined our Wall of Awesome, our Hall of Awesome, and that also includes Archimate, Zero, Renan Senti, Cheese McDammy, Krista, Slitherity, Shameless Otaku, The Random Ramblings Man, Corfan, Capito, Chris Graham, Lilysaurus, Paper Godzilla, Cabsy, The Minnesota Librarian, Sean Orange, Keith Shizuo, Sakura Sunset, and Joel Kreisman.
We literally do this like weird motion-y thing to the rhythm whenever he does that.
I didn't
never
know
see
that
him,
because
but,
I can't see them. We're on Skype.
Like
I'm
I
in
wiggle
my
every
office
time.
doing
It's
this.
so
Those dancing flowers that dancing play music to.
yes, except it's only to that.
The dancing flowers are like me.
All right. So now some of you, this is normally where we end the show, but it's not where we are ending the show tonight.
Woo!
Because, well, one, we're going to let you guys talk to us, but first...
Why?
First, we have a major announcement to make.
Big time.
Yes!
So, some of you have wondered why Nerd and Tie dropped down from fortnightly to monthly. And it's because we needed to make time in our schedules to record our new podcast. Nerd and Tie is releasing an RPG play podcast. I'm not calling it a D&D podcast because we're using the Super Awesome Action Heroes system, but it is called Stormwood and Associates. It is using the Super Awesome Action Heroes rules with the fantasy expansion set in a city not unlike San Francisco, the city of San Ricardo, Calisorda, as the team of Stormwood and Associates attempt to solve minor crimes, occasionally save the world, and do some sweet moves, including car chases through narrow streets.
In Illumina.
In a 1998 Lumina.
That was a really good episode.
And so we've recorded a bunch.
The pilot's really good.
The pilot's really,
It's really good.
And we will be releasing the first episode of that later this month. And we've recorded like a good 6 or 7 episodes worth of content. And so there should be regular updates. We're doing rotating. Besides the 3 of us, we are also being joined by our friend Kyle Johnson, Cage, to those of you who like read comment sections on my stuff sometimes. He's joining us as our 4th player, and we're rotating GMs. So we all have our own characters, but we are rotating who's GMing. I play Kel, the Hacksaw, the New Jersey elf Hacksaw. Gen is playing Raz Stormwood, the namesake of Stormwood and Associates. And
I am playing Bill, who is a very neurotic, aspiring wizard.
And Kyle is playing Babbitt, our goblin, our bisexual goblin thief.
Yep.
He's so good.
Kyle's an amazing role player. We're rotating GMs. The episodes we've recorded so far have me GMing and have Gen GMing.
For the first time ever in my life.
Gen GM for the first time.
Come listen to my sweet beach episode.
Minor spoiler: there's a drow surfer gang.
Rude. Ninja surfer gang.
Sorry, a drow ninja surfer gang.
They're ninja surfers. 10 times cooler.
And maybe some inappropriate Sean Connery movie references.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
dragon
unforgettable, sure to be audience favorite, Barrow Mackay, who I think is going to be a...
Barrow Mackay will return.
So basically, we're very excited to share
this stuff with you.
We've been doing this, and we can't wait to share it with you.
We've been recording these for about a month, and so it's
Sitting
very
on
hard
it.
not to tell everyone. And the Great Dragon Alcatraz.
The Great Dragon Alcatraz.
And
Sits in the bay.
and maybe having to invade the Great Dragon Alcatraz's rock. The Rock.
Sean Connery.
Anyways, that's our big announcement.
Ta-da.
Super exciting, right, guys?
Yay.
Please fake it. Yeah.
Yay.
Pretend to be enthusiastic. And now, because technically we have the room for as long as we want, which really means longer than I think you guys will want to talk. Do you guys have any questions? Or anything you guys want to say on the internet as Sean's wife falls asleep?
I'm sorry. I go to bed at 7.
I don't know. When is Famicom Dojo updating?
Yesterday?
Oh, did it? I've been doing this. Video or podcast?
Video podcast was supposed to come out today and last Friday and last Friday and last Friday.
But has it?
Okay.
No.
I'm going to step up for Famicom
You have more
Dojo.
listeners than we do. What the hell?
I'm going to step up for Famicom Dojo. They have a much better update schedule than Nick Izumi. I just want to... way better update schedule.
I don't know. I like that better than Adam's Digimon podcast. I've never listened to, but I'm well aware that it exists.
Is this just like Rip on Adam episodes?
I
had a big episode too. Now should we do a big episode?
Yeah, I'm sure he's voiced some video game.
Oh yeah. He's in Persona 3. It's the
I can't play Persona 3.
It's the reason. It's the reason my boss hates the dub of Persona 3. Is there was this character that she already hated, and then Vic Mignogna voiced him in the dub, and it was like, oh wow. Junpei is the character.
Yeah.
Sorry for any of you who were shocked that Vic Mignogna is in a PlayStation 2 video game. Like, again, I've been spoiling old media tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, while I'm at it, let's see, what else? Amuro and Char died at the end. Let's see, music was the thing that the Zentradi didn't like.
I hate Macross so fucking much.
Let me...
I hate it.
I know this is going to be a really big spoiler.
They put
at the end of
robot in a coat. They put the robot in a coat.
Yeah, after it ambushes the guy in the John. Remember the episode,
And
Trey.
the
It's a good
aliens
episode.
thought that it wasn't just a robot in a coat while they watched Minmay on TV.
Okay, that was a separate episode.
No, it wasn't. The robot in the coat went behind him.
Second. Oh, this is a big anime spoiler from a show from the 70s, and I know this one's going to come as a shock to you. Marie Antoinette dies in Rose of Versailles. I know that might come as they guillotine her. That might be a shock. I know, but yeah.
I don't know.
Rose of Versailles spoilers. The all of the French royal family get guillotined. That's a bit of a.
And the one Brit in the audience is celebrating.
And the Utena movie, everyone turns into fucking cars, and it doesn't make sense. And the director just said, he literally said, I just thought it'd be cool if they all turned into cars. That's it.
Yeah.
It's the movie. So here's the thing about the Utena movie. It finally starts to seem like they're coming to some sort of tie-in. It finally, after a thing of confusing, is Toga dead? Is Toga alive? What's to do with Saionji? It all starts to finally come together, and that's when you think you're at an inch before understanding. That's when the car wash raises out of the ground and pulls in Utena and turns her into the car. And then, as she tries to drive away on the highway, suddenly a car with Shiori as the license plate comes out and says, "You thought you were the only one who could turn into a car? No one thought anyone could turn into a car! No one!
You know, this is actually just adding to my stand-up set about people thinking trans people are Decepticons. This is only...
So welcome to our...
only adding to it.
Welcome to Rosa V8, our Utena movie
And
fan
the whole
cast.
Black Rose saga in the TV series means nothing and is filler and has no meaningful addition to the plot.
Whoa, shots
It has
fired.
Nothing.
Shots fired.
Skip the season. You can skip the season and walk. All right, watch. Just get to Akio flipping onto the hood of his car and it's fine.
No. That stuff
All right,
with the comma is
just
important.
get to the flip onto the hood of the car. And by the way, where are they driving to in those scenes? Where are they always driving to?
7-Eleven.
Like, I know.
Ume, moku, shiroku, zentai, ume, moku, shiroku,
Okay, so also, what's with the mullet? Why does he have to have a mullet?
Zentai, ume,
No, it wasn't.
Zentai, ume, moku, shiroku.
And also, why does Akio want to fuck his sister? Why does he want to do that? What is wrong with these writers? And again, then in the movie, when they had the opportunity, I will say, I love Utena's ending. I think it's a really meaningful, emotional ending, and I love it. But I don't understand why they kept driving somewhere.
Oh, so cars are
Oh, hey,
an
Corfan has
expression
an
of-
answer.
Anthe is using Utena as a vehicle for escape.
that doesn't explain Toga and Akio in the fucking convertible.
Oh well, no, that's also it's a symbol of adulthood. Minors can't own vehicles, whereas Akio flagrantly shows off his car. It's a show that he's an irresponsible adult. Come on, bro, get on my level.
He didn't need to be in a car to show that. He flips onto the hood with no one hiding. He's ghost riding his whip.
I mean,
I feel like that joke would have been funnier 10 years ago.
Anyways,
Yeah,
nothing
probably.
to me.
Probably.
I was born in 1989.
Wait, I'm older than you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Children. These are children.
Yes.
They are arguably the youngest two people in the room.
I'm probably the youngest person.
I have no idea how old you are.
Who, me?
Yeah.
That is a rude thing to say to someone.
I want it off the record, though.
Just
I
hold
was-
up in fingers what decade you're in.
Nobody, everyone turn around.
I'm not this is outside of my wheelhouse.
Okay, yeah, no, you
you're-
two are the youngest people in the room.
Well, I'm technically the youngest because I'm a year younger
Yeah.
than. Yeah.
They're babies.
I'm the bab.
They're babies. So I have no
Yeah.
idea how old Cheesy is either,
I
but
grew
that's just
up
my brain.
on the.
Okay.
I
Okay,
grew
there.
up on the G-Dang Fox Box Sunday. I grew up with a
Anybody
special
in
set.
retrospect feel like the Fox Box is the name of an inappropriate room at a furry convention?
You would have thought,
Thanks for ruining the box bug for me, Trey.
like, freaking.
Nothing that
Freaking-
Trey can do can
like,
be worse than what they did to Ultraman Tiga. Rest
Like,
in peace, Subaraya.
Saturday morning, like, fighting Foodons and Ugugio and what else was there? Cubics was a weird one.
Where was the
Ultimate
where
Muscle,
was the
fucking
the,
love
the
that.
kid-
Shaman
where was the
King.
4Kids version of Escaflowne aired?
That was Fox.
I didn't watch that. That was not on for me.
I remember because it was on around the same. It was during that weird trend of late '90s, early 2000s when networks were so desperate for anime, they would grab these shoujo shows and then be like, "Oh shit, this is for girls," and try to re-edit it so that it was so like
Dinosaur
Escaflowne. They
King.
cut the entire first episode, and Cardcaptor Sakura. They tried to pretend Shaoran was something other than a dumb love interest. I love that boy to death, but he is dumb. I have a type. Shit. Shit.
Chris Hemsworth in Ghostbusters?
Shit. Yeah, no. Like, I had this realization because the new Fate game came out, and so Fate has a version of Charlemagne. And so now I'm like, so between Charlemagne, Astolfo, and Bedivere, I'm at, shit, dumb boys in armor are my thing. So now you've just crossed gears between Thor and the guy from Ghostbusters. So shit.
Yeah.
Shit.
Listeners,
I have a type.
Listeners, we now know more of Nick Izumi's psychology than anyone ever expected this
I've
episode.
learned more about this person this weekend.
In this single day.
In this single day, in 2 panels. In the same room.
This is what happens when we get put in
What do
the
you
18
want,
plus
Sean?
panel room and it's 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
Hanzo is okay, so listeners, I hosted Hanzo the Razor for 10 years. That movie is awful.
It's so bad.
It finally got so the problem is it was super popular for a long time here. I'd have crowds of 60, 70 people to watch this awful movie.
There used to be bags of rice handed out.
We used to go and
rice plan.
we had the secret rice plan where we went out into the woods and did stupid things with rice.
That sounds really bad and
excellent.
kind of sexual.
We probably killed a lot of birds.
All
We
I'm
walked around
saying-
downtown Eau Claire pouring piles of rice on the doorstep of every business.
Awesome.
Well,
All
and
right,
then,
We
But-
we
but-
took Mike Keller in
Oh, no.
and we lined him up and had an execution squad throw rice at him. And Mike Keller, who once almost got into a fist fight with Travis Willingham at a convention.
To your credit, though, had it not been for Hanzo, I would not have understood one of the most unfunny reference jokes in Samurai Champloo that they did twice. Hanzo is in that show.
I forgot about that.
Well, so if you're not familiar with Hanzo the Razor, it is a series of 3 samurai films starring the same guy. Yeah, the same guy who played Zatoichi. And he said personally that the character he was most proud of, having played Zatoichi, was Hanzo the Razor. So there are 3 movies. The first one is awful, but it's so bad it's kind of funny, as long as you can get over the fact that there are 2 scenes in which he rapes someone till they like it. Now, the secret to hosting that is you get up in front of the screen at the moment it starts and start screaming at the audience to leave. They will invariably laugh at your freak out and not at what's happening. And that's when the shot from inside the pig intestine starts, as someone pulled a pig intestine backlit over a camera and pulled it in and out to simulate the point of view of Hanzo's penis.
Are we really going...
This is not a good movie. The second movie...
Are we really going that far to describe it all?
I'm almost done. I'm almost done. The second movie, I have to warn people. The second movie is just as gross and misogynist, but instead of being made so poorly that it's hilarious, it has actual filmmaking quality, so it's just terrible. The third movie is actually kind of good.
The third movie also features easily the best title of the Hanzo trilogy, Hanzo 3, Where's the Gold?
Who's got the gold?
Who's got the gold?
Excuse
me.
And all the sex, everything is consensual in Hanzo 3. So you don't feel like a gross person, but no one gets to it because they laughed at Hanzo 1 and then they watch Hanzo 2 and go like, what the hell did I just watch? I have to clean my brain with soap.
Yep.
Although it does have the Japafro.
Yep.
So I recommend if you watch it, you hunt down the old Anamigo Laserdiscs. There are 2 DVD collections, one of which is really bad, and then the Criterion Collection version.
Which,
It is in the Criterion Collection. It was on Hulu for a long time.
Okay. I do think it is worth noting that also in the Criterion Collection is both of Andy Warhol's monster movies, his Frankenstein and Dracula movies, which if you haven't seen them, don't.
And not the one of he used to film just an empty couch for hours and people napping and
Yep, Flesh for Frankenstein. It's in the Criterion Collection.
Prolific artist, but generally weird ass dude.
So yeah, Hanzo the Razor's a thing.
Yeah.
And he showed up in 2 episodes of Samurai Champloo.
Yep.
Except they called the character Monzo the Saw.
Yep.
And if you didn't know obscure, not very good samurai movies, you wouldn't have gotten that joke. And in an otherwise brilliant show, that was a mind-boggling deep cut that haunts me to this day.
Just remember, when someone says Hanzo, find out whether it's Hattori Hanzo or Itami Hanzo. If it's the former, you're okay. If it's the latter, run.
Hanzo is seriously...
Hanzo from Overwatch is named after Hattori Hanzo.
Yeah. So
not Itami Hanzo.
No.
These are very different characters.
No, the Hanzo movies take big dick energy to a whole new level.
And when we chanted the phrases, fuck that rice, it was not a metaphor.
No.
He literally puts his penis in a bag of rice in every movie. Every movie.
Yup.
I used to literally host it every Friday night at No Brand Con.
Why aren't you doing it?
Because after so many times, I can't say, hey Hanzo, say something obvious. Or deactivate emergency medical hologram. Or the fact that the most heroic thing he does in that whole first movie is commit euthanasia. That is the most heroic thing he does.
Bring back the tradition.
No.
So
gonna go stand on a giant map.
That reminded me of my favorite story from Anime Club. back in college.
Oh, no.
We were watching Lyrical Nanoha, which is a terrible magical girl anime made for pedophiles. But at least that's how I read it. I'm sorry, I didn't like Lyrical Nanoha. There's a scene at the end of
Unlike Kodomo no, I can't say Japanese words, so I'm just gonna not talk and make my joke.
My friend Gary, it was his graduation year. It was his favorite show. He decided to watch it. Well, in the last episode of the second season, the magical girls have to make this other character disappear using magic, and they're disintegrating her in their magic circle, and they're all crying. And I was in the back of the room snickering. And everyone looks at me and they're like, Nick, why are you laughing? I'm like, the youth in Asia are crying about the youth in Asia.
You're a terrible person, and that's why I love you.
Oh yeah, I forgot one of my favorite callbacks, Hanzo and Sandra Bullock in The Net.
Oh.
Only people who have seen Hanzo get that joke.
No.
Bring back the tradition.
No.
No, because do you know how many kids would get so upset at it?
It's almost midnight.
I have to actually be floor manager at midnight, so no.
No. We don't have any rice.
We don't have any rice. Well, I will point out. Good night, Corfan.
Good night.
He's old.
Good night, Carfan. Thank you.
He was the oldest person in the room. Now who's next? Who's next oldest? Is it
Next oldest has to leave.
Is it me? No, I'm 20 days older than him. Exactly 20 days older.
It's my half birthday today.
He was born in 1980. He's September 29th, 1980, which I remember because I'm September 9th, 1980. You're born in 1980?
No.
Then what are you talking about?
That's all.
You're a September birthday.
And
You're all September birthdays.
Sean and I are also the same height. We also were both computer science majors, at least when I started college I was. And we lived in the same house and had the same candidate for Eau Claire City Council living in our basement.
Yeah, current candidate, vote Tuesday, everyone.
Vote Tuesday. If you're in Eau Claire, I think I'm the only person who lives in Eau Claire in the room.
Oh, right. Who's my roommate?
Raise your hand if you've lived with Laura Benjamin. Laura Benjamin's been engaged to two of my ex-girlfriends.
I think I should leave now.
Oh. Yeah, that's why it's an important moment in city council history if we could elect her. Because it would be the first time a former roommate of mine would be in city council.
This is really fun because this is getting into secret podcast territory.
It is, but it's going on the main podcast.
I know, so
What's the secret
if
podcast?
you've ever
Dear
wondered
God.
what secret podcasts were, they sound a lot like this.
Well, and they are still on the website if you can find it. We didn't upload the
haven't-
last 4 that we recorded, but so I don't know if Twat Waffle ever made it up there or not.
That was a good one.
Oh, that gives me an idea, though. Maybe I need
That
to
one was
record my
recorded
own
live
secret
loudly in a
podcast
panera.
hidden on the site, and it won't be a nonsense cast. It'll just be me alone being like, hello, and welcome to Nick Izumi's Lone JoJo's Bizarre Adventure review show. Today I'm reviewing a single episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh my God,
You can
yes.
only find it by clicking on certain areas of the site.
No.
Yeah, if you
It has to be on whenever there's 2 letters in the site, J-O next to each other.
I'll work on getting that into the style sheets. It's
Whenever you find Joe, that's where the secret podcast.
no, it's
This
so
doesn't exist yet, but
so the
now I
secret
have to
podcasts
make
are a
it,
real
so-
thing. We recorded a bunch of my favorite is The Wolf, which was the one we recorded.
Yes!
At
Wolf was
Nerd
the
Pie
best
Expo at 2 in the morning we recorded it. And my voice sounded like this because
you were
I had
so
completely
sick
lost
and
my
dead
voice. And so I sounded like I was
The wolf.
I was like
can't
doing the
even-
intros for
And I was salty because I had spent
on your dial at 98.7.
My day had been spent doing 3 things. 1, sleeping from being on the overnight shift before. 2, waking up, looking at the financials, and crying in my hotel room for 20 minutes.
I'm
and
still paying for that.
3, hosting the cosplay contest. So I was in an interesting place at that point.
Yeah, and that was, I don't know, I think that might have been Gen's first time on the Secret Podcast.
It was.
Before Gen joined the show.
I don't remember.
I think it was.
Well, it was before you joined the show because that was...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I remember being on...
We might have done a KaroshiCon one.
Was it? There was Geek.kon with the fire
The only thing
alarm.
I'm
yeah,
super
there was,
fond
yeah.
of
I think
about
that was-
Oh, yeah.
weekend,
That was an interesting one.
Yeah,
That's
during a
good
Geek.con, during a fire alarm, like someone pulled
At
a
like
fire
2
alarm
in the
at
morning.
2 in the morning. No, it was like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was asleep when it went off, and I was in a suite. I had been upgraded to a suite that year. I had been upgraded to a suite that year. I was on the 9th floor, and the fire alarm went off, and I'm asleep in my bed with my wife, and I was just like, what is happening? And I tried to put my hand over the fire alarm to get it to stop, because I'd been asleep, and
my reaction.
I love how
and oh, it's going off in number 2. Thankfully we put clothes on before we came out of our hotel room, which in a real fire maybe not have been the best diversion, but I put on pants. And because I looked out and said, oh, it's happening to the rest of the hotel.
People who used to be on the podcast, because you had clothes on, we could have gone to Denny's, but because we had to be considerate of a former member of this podcast, we didn't go to Denny's because he didn't have the decency to wear a shirt.
He came out in pajama pants and nothing else.
Yep. I just love how the alarm went off, and we all just is this real? Do we have to
all
go
just
outside?
standing around up
and
on the 9th
thank
floor.
goodness one of the staffers was in the atrium being like, yes, you have to come outside.
And I will say,
we're
it
just
took forever to get out of the building. But we got out of the building, and we sat outside for an extra 20 minutes because I was not going in that building until those elevators were back on because I was on the 9th floor, and I had been asleep.
And yeah, we just sat on the curb.
Yeah, we
outside
sat on the curb and recorded.
and recorded a secret podcast.
Again, these are on the website if you can find them. It's not that hard to find them.
No.
But it's also not obvious if you're not looking. If you're looking, you can find it. The Secret Podcast, you should listen to them.
Please don't look for the JoJo cast isn't real.
The JoJo Cast isn't real.
Yet.
We did also record one at your wedding.
Yes.
And you guys recorded one at Adam's wedding that I wasn't invited to. I wasn't invited to your wedding, Adam, and I still remember.
I never listened to the podcast
It's
for my
okay.
wedding.
I didn't invite anyone in this room to. No, you were at my wedding. You actually married me, and then and Cheesy was there too. But
I should leave.
I should leave. I'm the unmarried one.
A couple of the people in the wedding, including the officiants, were part of the current management of Geek.kon.
Ooh.
Oh.
I'm still friends with
sorry.
my officiant. That's funny. They were at mine. That was a joke. I don't know if anyone heard Miles saying that his parents were at his wedding, and I responded that they were at mine. But you heard my response, but I don't know if the microphones hear British people.
Racist.
I know. I'm saying the microphones are racist against British people. I'm not.
You dang racist
I have
microphone.
a British
Why are we
friend.
using a racist
I have a British
microphone?
friend.
Did I ever tell you guys about my racist cell phone?
He's also part Welsh.
I had a racist cell
Scottish.
phone that anytime I tried to write the word tacos,
I can't be
it corrected
racist. I
it
know
to
a Welsh
racist.
person. What?
It auto-corrected the word tacos to racist. So I would be like, hey, want to go to Taco Bell? And my friend would be like, what the hell is racist Bell?
I don't see the difference. So here's the question. How many people have listened this far into the podcast and haven't stopped? I mean, half
you're
our
gonna
audience
keep all
is in
this?
the room.
You're still
Corfan will listen to the end.
She's what are you
Yeah.
expecting the after
We
credit
should leave a
sequence?
secret
Are you,
note for Corfan.
Do you think
We
you're
should
going
leave
to
a
see
secret note for
Ant-Man?
Corfan.
Secret note for Corfan.
You guys are gonna wait for the
guys.
end of this to see Ant-Man crawl up someone's ass? Is that the plan?
So what you should do is subscribe to us on Twitter @NerdandTie, on Facebook /NerdandTie, on Tumblr nerdandtie.tumblr.com. Also, subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, although the Google Play Store link is broken on our website, and I haven't fixed it, Stitcher, or anything can take an RSS feed. Remember, you can always support the podcast financially through sponsoring episodes. I have a Patreon at patreon.com/TRAEGORN, which also Nick has a Patreon at patreon.com/NickIzumi.
And check out my stuff because I do more ranting.
Yep.
Sorry.
Gen has a Ocelot Dude Designs on Etsy and other stuff.
Yep.
And then also has a coffee at coffee/Genjamin.
Take that down.
And but also the Nerd and Tie Network is expanding. Besides Stormwood and Associates, we are happy to add Bullshit Free Witchcraft is officially a part of the Nerd and Tie Network now.
Yay.
As we are expanding into multiple shows, multiple podcasts, and we thought, why should the podcast be on separate websites? That's dumb. So if you want to hear me talk about witchcraft for 20 minutes every month, you can go listen to that weird stuff. Nick Izumi has a show on YouTube you should watch.
Very occasionally. We're doing a. My wife and I are going through the Michael Bay Transformers movies right now. Pray for us. Also, look forward to some upcoming long-form video essays about Edge of Tomorrow and a Tom Cruise movie that was a good manga adaptation, and Mothra, the best kaiju. That's not up for debate. I'm sorry.
And also, you should listen to Famicom Dojo on an inferior podcast network.
Defunct.
Hey, you want to join ours?
I'll talk to my co-host.
Yeah. Anyways. This is the point where I have been Traydorn.
I'm still Genjamin.
And I've occasionally been mistaken for young Vink, but I guess I'm Nick Izumi.
All right, and with that, Nick, say your catchphrase.
Keep on spockin' in the free world.
Unless you don't want to, and that's okay. There's the off button.